Hi there, my name's Kevin Andrews. I live in this town of Oradour-sur-Ver. I work for Leggett Immobilier, and welcome to my house. We have now been in France for nearly 20 years. Before that, we lived in London, in southeast London, where we were both very, very busy. I used to work for a German investment bank, and my wife was a photographer. So I was away 23 days in a month abroad. She was always out on shoots and on location, so we'd see each other perhaps 2-3 days a month. We both earned good money, but the stress was just too much. So we decided to make a change and change our lifestyle completely. Sold up in London, looked around in France, and plumped for the Limousin in the end. Now, there were a number of reasons for that. We wanted to be reasonably close to an airport so my wife could still get back and forth to the UK to work. But we also wanted to be far enough south so that the weather was good, because that was the thing about living in London. Every day it was a grey day. Ideally, we would have liked to live a bit closer to the coast, because my wife's South African, so she was brought up by the coast in Durban. But we looked kind of west of Cognac, west of Angoulême, and it's more expensive and it's not quite as pretty as it is around here, I don't think. So we kind of ended up in this area a little bit north of the Dordogne, where there's a lot of expats. Our initial plan was to buy a kind of big house in the country with outbuildings and lots of land and do gîtes. But then we kind of thought about it and thought that's probably a bit mad to go from living in South London to living in the middle of nowhere. So we ended up living in a town, and it's not a big town, but we're very glad we did, because it means you can walk out the door, walk to the supermarket, walk to the boulangerie, you're in a community. So when we got here, we didn't really have any plans with regard to work. We were looking around for somewhere to buy, to live. We had enough money to buy a kind of a house that needed some work doing and some money in the bank to do some work. And in the end, we found this place after looking for about 2 months. It needed quite a lot of work, and my background in DIY was pretty much changing a light bulb. That was the limit of my ability. But we kind of worked things out, got some people in to do some stuff, and we kind of transformed the place into what we have today. When we first got here, this was a barn door. This was, believe it or not, 4 rooms. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And when we bought it, the kitchen was a sink in that corner, and that's it. Originally, you'd come out of this door and there was quite a big drop down to the garden below. So we turned it into kind of more of a terrace effect. And then the big thing that we did, when we bought the house, the boundary of the house was here, so we didn't own this bit here at all. But the old guy across the road wanted to sell up, and he asked if we wanted to buy this bit of land. So he said, yeah, great, no problem. So we bought this bit of land and thought, well, this would be ideal, as it's south-facing, this would be ideal for a swimming pool. Insanely hot during the summer to sit over there. So we put a pergola over there, and this is where we spend most of the summer, evenings and weekends, sitting out here, enjoying the French lifestyle. When my wife stopped being a photographer, she retrained as a Pilates teacher, and then she also started growing flowers for weddings and to sell as kind of flowers. So we've got this kind of bit of lawn here, which is just lawn, obviously. And then down here we transformed this bit into some kind of flower beds. It's completely quiet. All you can hear are the birds. And I think French towns are very different from kind of English towns. Even small English towns are usually quite noisy and busy. There's no way on earth that we could have afforded this in the UK, certainly not in the southeast. So 20 years ago, it was actually my wife who became an estate agent. At the time, the sales manager for Leggett joined one of her Pilates classes. So she joined as an agent. Then she got pregnant, so I took over. So that was about 13 years ago, something like that. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, the guy who was the area coordinator for this area moved to the south of France to set up a team there. and then I was made the area coordinator for the team in this kind of area. So my team runs from Angoulême in the west to Vichy in the east, up to Bourges, and then down through the Cantal. So at the moment we have 74 agents, I think, although the number changes quite a lot. A lot of them are expats, some French, some Dutch, some Belgians, a couple of Norwegians. So there's people from all over the world have joined. Quite a lot of people have joined who have been clients, who've bought houses through other agents. They've seen the lifestyle and they've thought, this is something that I could enjoy, because you've got the freedom of being your own boss, but you're still within the structure of a kind of a corporate organisation. Obviously, people still have to earn a living when they come here, especially if they're not kind of retired. So this gives you the best of both worlds, that you can set your own agenda, you can work as hard as you like, but you're still within the confines of a big organisation with a big marketing budget and kind of global reach. There's an agent in my team called Sophie Green, who joined a couple of years ago, started off kind of quite quietly. She's got 3 young children, so she's super busy. But last year she sold, I think, 25 houses and was the top salesperson in our team, and I think the 5th best salesperson in the entire country, which is an amazing thing. But hopefully we'll go to one of our offices a bit later on and she may be there, so we can have a chat with her then. OK, so one of the other things we did was the top of the barn. When we first bought this, there was no wall to the top of this barn, so the first thing we did was put a wall in it. And then we've converted the top of the barn into a couple of rooms, and that's where I pursue my hobby, which is music, writing electronic music, playing the guitar, and that's also where I have my office. I find it helps to keep the office out of the house, so you're not interrupted by small children and dogs and cats and people at the front door. So we'll go up there and we'll have a look. Sorry about the state of this room. This is a kind of a all-purpose room, so I've got all my electronic equipment, drones and cameras and stuff there. And this is where we do some kind of photography and YouTube filming now and again. And then at the end here is it's in my office and my kind of music area. But last winter we did some filming here about what I'd like to do in here and my recording of my last album. So we can have a look at that. So what I tend to do is I have 2 bits of software here, one called Maschine and one called Reaper. Reaper is what's called a DAW, which is a digital audio workstation. So that's where you put all the tracks for the music and do the mixing and mastering. And then what I tend to use Maschine for is kind of coming up with ideas and loops, 4-bar, 8-bar loops for various types of music. So that is your bass guitar. Add in a drum kit. Add in a snare. Closed hi-hat. After a few days, hours, weeks work, depending on kind of the mood and how you're doing things, then you will end up with a kind of completed project with lots of various tracks on it. So this, for example, is one that is on the last album I did. You can hear the bass and the drone, and then the kick drum comes in here. Make an album, mix the album, master the album, release it on Spotify, and make absolutely no money out of it whatsoever. Doing this as a kind of hobby, then you do feel as though you've started with nothing, you've created something, you package it up, send it off, and you've actually kind of created something that's finished. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that little bit of footage of me messing about on the computer, and it wasn't too painful to watch. But anyway, we'll go and have a look around the rest of the house now. Okay, so when we bought this bit of land from the neighbour, this building came with it. So this was his garage. So at the moment this is just a mess, and where I store all the kind of Leggett stuff. But what we did is we made this room into a gym, which is something I could never have had in London, which is great. So this is the gym, and then, I mean, the thing is, I suppose the beauty of this area is because the property is relatively cheap. It means that you can get places with a lot of space, with a lot of outbuildings. So if you have a passion, if you're into pottery or painting or carpentry, then you can buy places that will allow you to kind of pursue your passion. Okay, so we'll go to the office we've got in a little town called Chailloux, which is quite a famous town. It's where Richard the Lionheart was killed, strangely. And we'll take some marketing stuff there, which I've got to go and deliver. And hopefully there'll be some people there that we can have a chat to. Okay, so we're going to take this to Chailloux. We'll have a look at what's in there when we get there, because that's quite interesting. And a few Avondra boards. One of the joys of the job is just driving around the French countryside. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. Over the years, I have done quite a lot of jobs. I've been a bookie, I have been a petrol station designer, I have been a professional cricketer, I have been a foreign exchange dealer. But I think I can safely say that this job, selling houses in the French countryside and working with a team, is easily the best job I've had. In terms of what you need to be an agent, I think the most important thing is you can't actually sell a house to somebody who doesn't want to buy a house. What you can sell is you can sell the idea that they want to buy a house from you. And the key thing to do with that is trustworthiness and honesty. I think the big thing, especially for a lot of the overseas buyers when they come to France, is that they're quite scared by the whole process. So they find the whole process quite intimidating. Quite often they don't speak any French or very little French, and they need somebody to help them through that process. So they can't follow their dream until they're not scared of their dream. So the market around here for houses, by and large, we tend to sell houses at kind of up to 100 and 150,000 euros, holiday homes and retirement homes. And then we also do quite a lot of stuff at around 300, 350, 400,000, which tend to be places that have businesses attached to them. So they're either stables, or they've got a fishing lake, or they've got nice gîtes, or it's a campsite. We do sell some expensive stuff. I mean, one of the agents in my team has sold 2 chateaux in the last 2 years, one for 1.3 million and one for 1.5 million, I think. So it does happen. So this is the Chateau de Montbron, which is owned by a Dutch guy. It comes with obviously all the land you can see. It's got its own bar across the road there, the Taverne, and then it also has, I think, literally thousands of hectares of land all around it. The most famous people who've come to visit it to potentially buy it were Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, who came some years ago. They were walking around the village and around the town, completely unmolested. People had no idea who they were. In the end, they bought their vineyard in the south of France, which was a shame, but there you go. One of the really nice things we found when we moved here is that it's really quiet in here, but if you want to get a bit of life, or you want to see some different scenery, or you want to go somewhere else, if you go west for a couple of hours, you're on the Atlantic coast. You can go to Royan or La Rochelle. But if you go south, you only have to drive for 5 hours, and you're sitting in the south of France with your feet in the Mediterranean. And what we used to do before we had our son is get up early on a Saturday morning, leave the house about 8 o'clock. You'd be in Barcelona at 2:30, having a late lunch in Barcelona. Okay, so now we're coming into the kind of historic market town of Chailloux, where we have an agency. That's the old chateau you can see ahead of you, where Richard the Lionheart met his untimely end. Actually, before we go up there, I will just show you a little house that will be a good demonstration of a renovation. So this is a house that I sold to a guy years ago, and when he bought it, it was a chicken abattoir. which is not very nice. So it was quite unpleasant inside, and he managed to transform it. He did an amazing job, actually. So it's beautiful now. So before he transformed it, it was covered in breeze blocks, asbestos roof, and at the back there's a little stream running out the back, which just looks out over the fields. So he had a lot of vision. Okay, so we're just taking a brief pit stop on the way to the agency. We are at a little village hamlet called Le Grand Puy-Connu. And that's the other nice thing to do around here, is there's a lot of country walks, thousands, literally thousands of kilometres of walks. And it's beautiful, it's quiet and very peaceful. So I don't know whether this guy, it looks like it's an old house or a barn, and they've knocked down part of it, or they're building an extension onto it, cladding it in wood, and this bit is in breeze block, obviously. But it is going to have, when it's done, the most incredible view. So the terrain and the landscape isn't as flat as if you go kind of further west into the Charente and the Charente-Maritime or the northern Dordogne. If you go down further into the Dordogne Valley and the Lot Valley, then it does become a bit more like this kind of hills and kind of rivers and rolling countryside. But from here, if you go further east, it just gets more and more hilly, more and more mountainous as you go into the Auvergne. Then you hit Lyon, and then you're in the Alps, where it's really mountainous. Okay, so now we are coming into Chailloux, where we have our office, which is just up here on the left. Okay, so we'll just drop these Avandre boards into the office. Hello.
Oh, hi, Kevin.
How are you?
All right. You?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yes, fine, thank you.
Marvellous. Let me just dump these in the back. So this is Sophie.
Oh.
She is one of our top agents. It was last year, but she was the top agent in November in the whole country.
Yeah.
Amazing. How long have you worked at Leggett?
It's been just over 4 years now.
And what brought you to France in the first place?
It was just the right time. First child was just about to start school in England. We'd sold a little business. We were at a crossroads of what to do next. Came over here in a caravan, really liked it. Thought we could live here. And if it didn't work out, we'd always have a holiday home we could use here. We didn't sell our house in the UK for about 6 months, maybe 12 months.
Right.
So we always had that security blanket to go back to. And I've always we've always done up properties and sold them on, and I was a mortgage advisor in the UK, so I've always been around properties. Loved the idea of being an agent, but I wasn't very confident with my French, so I didn't think I'd ever be able to do it.
You use the same vocabulary over and over again, isn't it? So, I mean, this is what I say to, when we get new agents on the team and they're worried about their French, I say to them, get a English-French immobilier dictionary and just learn the words you'll need.
I think I set myself a goal from the training. I had this business plan and I set myself a goal of how much I wanted to earn. And at the time, you had to sell, I think, you were selling 1 out of 8 houses, 8 mandates. So after my training, I thought, right, well, I need to sell maybe 10 houses a year. So I thought, right, well, that's 80 houses I need to list. And in my area at the time, so 4 years ago, there were loads of houses that had been up for sale for years, hadn't been touched. They were up with local agencies, but there was no activity going on. So I targeted those houses. I found out who the owners were by talking to the neighbours, the mairie, putting in flyers, etc. And listed a lot of houses that were already for sale. So
what is it about the job that you like relative to kind of other jobs you've had in the past?
I love going out and seeing new houses. I love doing estimations. And that first time you look round and you've maybe driven past a house 100 times and you wonder what's behind that front door. What
kind of things do you bring to the job that you think make you successful and would make other people successful?
You need to be organised. There's days you do lots and lots of different appointments, different parts of the sale process. Maybe helping buyers visualise how they could make changes and how they could improve, explain to people how they can live the good French life over here.
So we had, we have quite often competitions for the agents to do with sales volumes and listing volumes, that kind of thing. And we had one that finished recently for the number of new listings that an agent took on over a period, I think it was 3 months. and the first prize for that was a car, which is very nice. And then there were other prizes of 3,000, 2,000 and 1,000 euros, I think, or 5,000 euros. But Sophie was one of the prize winners, so she won 1,000 euros for her part in that competition, which, congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
Perhaps you could explain what it is that makes you so good at finding mandates, because you do seem to find a lot of them.
At the beginning, I targeted houses that had been up for sale for a long time with other agencies. I would always put my for sale boards up, sold quite a lot in my local area. People saw, they quickly turned to sold, and that was a great word of mouth for the local, probably more so the French vendors in the area. Amazing how many people say, oh, you're really busy, I saw you listed, blah, blah, blah. So Facebook's great for just local knowledge, local sales. I also just do the basics that Leggett's promote, so the magazines, baguette bags, get those out to all my local Marys, well, the magazines obviously, not the baguette bags. I've got the magnet on my car so people can see me driving around. I've even got a Leggett hoodie, which I'm very proud of.
So what do you think, I mean, Leggett's are a very successful company and you're a successful agent within that company. What do you think it is that differentiates Leggett from the local and other French agencies? I mean, I know we're in an office here, but predominantly we are an online company. We
offer a vast amount of online marketing, and which attracts lots of interest to our websites. But then we've also got our brilliant support team at head office that then, you know, offer the personal touch, and then obviously the agents on the ground that know the areas and can you know, give a lot of local information. But it doesn't matter if the client's in France, in the UK, Belgium, Holland, wherever.
When I first started, we were predominantly a British agency selling to British clients. And then kind of the Brexit thing happened, so we refocused the marketing. But we're still 50% overseas buyers, 50% French buyers, something like that. The overseas buyers are kind of still mostly Brits. The Brits still want to move to France. They still want to live here. They still want holiday homes here. It has changed slightly, hasn't it? But it's but the volume of sales hasn't gone down at all. I mean, it just went through the roof last year. I think the team last year were up almost 50% on the figures for the previous year, which is amazing. I hope that was of interest to you. I hope you enjoyed looking around my house and watching me mess about on the computer with the music. And you understand a little bit more about what the job involves and what Leggett's about and what the countryside's like around here and what it's like living in this part of the world. So if you want to live here, or you want to come and work for us, or you just want to look at houses, then please get in touch. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.